Hey everyone, I just wanted to hop on here again, and I've come to a beautiful spot on the American River that I have not explored before, and it's been quite a joy to take a stroll down here. I found some poppies, some vetch, different kinds of birds. I found some cool rocks. It's been a really beautiful day so far. If you know me in real life, you know that my faith is a huge part of my life, and I really want to share that and be an encouragement to other people in that aspect of their lives. And so I really want to make this video because I think that it's very timely. Winter is a really hard season for a lot of people, and like I said in my last video about winter activities that you can do, I think it's really important that if this is a hard season for you, you are leaning into it and not trying to numb through that. And so that was kind of my angle of the last video. Is I wanted it to be an encouragement to get outside in winter, even though that might be more challenging. This video, I want to encourage you that the winter seasons in our lives, emotionally and spiritually, can also be rich seasons of learning and growing and storing up treasures in our lives, even though they can be some of the hardest and most painful seasons of our lives. I've written some verses down that I've found a lot of comfort in, and I really want to share them with you too. But I was struck by the idea that I've been seeing a lot of social media posts about spring and about how everyone just wants to escape winter, and we're all so excited about spring coming. And I was seeing them way back in January, and I found myself thinking, oh yeah, spring's coming. And yet there was this tug in my heart that I was like, wait, maybe I'm not quite ready to end winter. And for me, physical winter is not the hardest season of the year. It's not significantly harder than other seasons, but the winter of our lives is. I just got back from Japan. I know I've been harping on that all the time, but for me, in many ways, that was a winter season in life. It was much more challenging than I expected. It was hard being away from home. I got sick a lot. There were a lot of emotional challenges, cultural challenges, social challenges that I went through, and that was hard. And it was a winter of the soul, and I went expecting it to be a spring and summer season for me, just in the sense that I went expecting this great fun adventure. And I tried not to have too many expectations for that season of my life, but I did. And then when those things didn't happen the way I thought they would, I was disappointed and heartbroken in a way. I was heartbroken with some of the hard things that happened. And these ants. I was heartbroken with some of the things that happened that I wasn't expecting. And I think that many of you can relate to that. You go into a season of your life expecting something wonderful, and when it is not wonderful, and in fact, when it is really, really hard, I think it can be pretty crushing. So I know we're all in a hurry to escape the winters of our lives, but I really believe, because I've seen it in my own life and others, that God has a specific purpose for each season of our lives, and that even if things go awry and not as planned, especially on our end of things, God redeems those seasons, and He has purposed those seasons for us, that He will do good with what happens in our lives, that He will bring growth and learning and truth and redemption and restoration out of even the darkest, most dismal and painful seasons of our lives. I have seen that, I know that to be true, and I just wanted to share some encouragement with you. So here are a couple verses that I wrote down. So the first verse is Psalm 1, 1 through 3. Psalm 1, 1 through 3. Blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers, but whose delight is in the law of the Lord, and who meditates on His law day and night. That person is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf
does not wither.
I really like that last verse, and I wanted to read the first two to give it context, but the third verse that says that person is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season. I just think that's so important for us, that there is this statement of blessing toward the person who is close to God and who seeks God and keeps God's wisdom and way in his life. And I think that there is such blessing to be found in that. And at the same time, it doesn't say that that tree is bearing fruit constantly. It says it bears fruit in its season. And if you look around in nature, trees, deciduous trees, go dormant in winter and they're not bearing fruit. They have a winter season as well. And I think that it is very easy to feel like we need every season of our life to be so productive and so shiny and beautiful and polished, and that everyone around us thinks that we're competent and we have it together. We're functional people. And I think those are all good things, but I also think that it can be really easy to blame yourself and feel guilty and feel ashamed if you're not bearing fruit in every single season. I think that God clearly states here we are like trees, and that there are winter seasons in our lives, and that I'm taking the focus kind of, this verse has a focus, and I'm fixating kind of on the season aspect of it. So I'm taking this in a different direction here, but I really, really like how this verse discusses the seasonality of fruit bearing, that it is not this constant, just mechanical productivity. It's a seasonal flow. Life with God is a seasonal flow. I hope this wind isn't too distracting. But the geese, listen to the geese. Cool. Okay, 4:2. Okay. 2 Timothy 4:2.
Preach the word. Be prepared in season and out of season. Correct, rebuke, and encourage with great patience and careful instruction.
So I really like this verse, again, because it references the seasonality of life. And at the same time, it is saying to be prepared in and out of season, that things will happen when we least expect it, and that God's purpose for our life and his calling for us to be correcting and rebuking, this is kind of this like accountability in each other's lives, and this encouragement that we are to be encouragers and to do all those things, to be like active participants in each other's lives in and out of season. And that doesn't mean if you're on the floor with depression and you can't even get off the floor to slap a smile on your face and go out there and encourage someone else. I don't think that's the spirit of this verse at all. What I think this is saying is that God wants to use us and partner with us, and wants us to be with him in and out of season, and stay with him and be open to the doors he's opening, even when it feels like winter. Just like, God's word is so multifaceted. I think that's a facet that I'm hearing from this verse right now. I think it also can mean that there will be moments and opportunities when doors are open and they're not in the season you would expect them. And to not be closed off to those opportunities and those moments in life just because it's out of season or it's not in a way you would have expected it to come. I think this verse is encouraging this awareness about God's presence and how he works in our lives always. That it's always ongoing. And it may look different, it may operate differently in different seasons. We all go through different seasons in life, but God is ever present, and there's no dormancy season for his presence and his working in our lives and for his calling on our lives and purpose. He never leaves us purposeless. This is a classic one. I think even if you didn't grow up Christian, you may have heard this one. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and read this whole section because it's great. I'm going to do it.
Ecclesiastes 3, 1 through 8. For everything there is a season, a time for every activity under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to harvest, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to cry and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to turn away, a time to search and a time to quit searching, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be quiet and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace.
I think that is such a precious passage for me because it reminds me of a very important truth, that there is a season to everything in life. And for the purposes of this video and where I'm going with all of this, I think that there are great, profound purposes to be found in the winters of our lives. That there is something about adversity and the painful, dark seasons of our life that can't be found in other seasons. And it's a depth and a refining and a smelting down of our character that happens or can happen. I think when we bulldoze those seasons and we resist them and we just stay angry and resentful and hateful about ourselves, about life, about God, about other people in those hard seasons, I don't know if this work can happen. But when we yield to the season and we open ourselves up to the work that God can do in it, He's a creative God. He creates and gives life, and He speaks life into darkness and death. And so when there's darkness and death in our lives, when we yield and open that to Him, He raises things up out of the ashes of our lives. I've seen it in my life. I've seen it in other people's lives. And I just think this passage is really a reminder to myself, and I hope to others, and an encouragement that no matter what, no matter how dark and despairing that season is, that it's a season. It is a season. We don't know when it'll end, but no season is forever. And what I want to say, that these verses I'm using kind of as context to establish that God says there's seasons. He doesn't expect or He doesn't demand that everything stay the same and stay perfect and stay beautiful and lovely and butterflies and rainbows in your life all the time. And if somehow that's not going on, that you're wrong or that there's something wrong, He says there are seasons. And the encouragement that I want to offer from that is that it's a season. It will not last forever. And at the same time, while we are in those seasons, when we sit and we quiet ourselves and we be still and know that He is God, He does amazing things with us. And when we look back at those seasons in our lives that we thought we'd never come through, we look at who we are now and the gifts, the treasures that we have to offer others now, because we've been there. We have been through those seasons. We have wandered in the desert. We've been starving and hungry and broken to pieces. And God led us through the Red Sea. He parted the waters for us, and He led us through the Red Sea. He led us across the Jordan River. And in that story about the Jordan River, they left stones by the river to commemorate what God had done, as a little shrine, as like God was here. He did this for us. And I think it's so profitable in our lives. I think it's so important to put down those little stones in our own lives, whatever that is, journaling, writing it down, whatever you do to commemorate that, but to remember what God did for you. And to reflect on where you've been and where you are now. You might be in the middle of winter and you know spring is coming and you want so badly to get out of this season. And I know, I wanted out. Japan was awesome, so much richness and adventure, but there were days when I wanted to come home. There were so many days when I couldn't wait. I didn't know if I could make it a year. I wanted to come home, if I'm honest. And I look back at that, and I look back at that dark valley at times that felt like a dark valley that I was in, and God was there. And I look at what he did in my heart and how I came to know him in a different way. I was alone and I was with him. It was me and him in a very intimate way that I have not gone through before. And I've come out of that and I have grown. I've grown in my faith. I've grown in my compassion for other people, in my belief in myself, my strength, that it doesn't come from me, it comes from God, but that He is in me, living in me, and there is strength in that. I can face things differently than I did before, and I don't think I would have, I wouldn't have these things in my life. I wouldn't have learned the lessons I learned if I hadn't gone through that tough season. So I hope this offers you encouragement. I hope that you can find some nuggets of truth and goodness in here for yourself, whatever season you're in. And I know we all want to get to spring. We all want the green grass, the flowers, the sunshine, the warmth, all of that. I know. That's not wrong. And at the same time, don't miss what God has for you in this season. Because I promise there's good in every season. But it's really hard to see in some seasons, especially the winter seasons of our lives. It's hard to see it. And I know. And I just want to encourage you that it's there. There are treasures there. And also when you come out the other side and look back, there is such beauty in the journey and in what you went through and how it can be turned around and restored, and the growth that has risen up from the ashes. Look back on that. Remember where you came from and remember where you are now. Look back for a minute. The geese are cheering me on here. So yeah, I wanted to come on here and encourage you. It's still winter here. It doesn't feel like it, but I'm sure it does feel like it for many of you around the country and around the world. And you might really, really be in a winter season. And I would love to hear from you if you are. If there's a way I can pray for you, encourage you, please let me know. And if there is something that you learned from winter seasons that you want to share and that you think would encourage others, please, please, please share it. I'd love to hear from you. Whatever your walk of life is, I really want to hear from you to add to this conversation on just wanting to escape the season. We all want that, I think, at different times in our lives. But what are the treasures that you found from embracing the season you're in? And what did you learn from walking through that season or dragging your body through that season and getting out the other side and then looking back at where you were? What did you learn from that? Because I think there's so much we learn in those seasons of our lives. Thank you so much for joining me and being along for the ride in this video. I really hope that it encouraged and blessed you. That is my biggest goal for this. I just want to encourage and bless you. So I hope that is what this did, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.